everyone. I'm Mayor Mike, and we are Talking Point. Today we have a kind of a special edition. We have one of our exchange students here, Maria Koval. Maria, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very nice, very glad to be here.
So you are here as part of an exchange program, and you are currently attending SPASH. You're a junior, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Tell us a little bit about how you got involved in the exchange program.
so I won a scholarship last year. I went through this long process of applications and essay writing, and I finally was notified that I was selected for the program called Future Leaders Exchange Program, and that's how I came here in September. My host family picked me, so that's how I ended up in Wisconsin, and now I just live as a normal American student in a host family.
Okay. What sort of classes are you taking at SPASH?
I take a lot of different stuff actually, but I have finance and government and
Okay.
U.S. history, so some English with creative expression.
What do you think the biggest surprise was by becoming a standard U.S. student?
I think that there are so many differences that it is very hard for me to choose one single thing. But I was impressed by the fact that people can, like students can choose their own subjects, their own classes, and it is not something that I had in Ukraine when I was there, and yeah, that's why I was very happy to be able to influence my schedule directly.
And outside of high school, what do you find the most interesting thing about Central Wisconsin?
Oh, there are so many cool things that it is hard to pick only one, but people are very involved into sports. So I knew nothing about American football, and I spent so much time watching basketball games, football games with my host family, and now we're into March Madness. So it is very cool to see people being fans of stuff like this, and I love it.
I'm sure it is. So you mentioned you were taking some government courses, and you're here on a scholarship through a leadership program. We had an opportunity to spend some time together last fall when you first arrived. You got to kind of hang out and shadow the mayor for a day. I don't think we made any new ordinances for you, but tell us what you did.
So as a part of my exchange program, I had to complete a project where I was supposed to spend a day with the local leader. And as I was very interested in government and organization, planning, local leadership, I contacted a mayor and spent the whole day job shadowing you. It was an amazing opportunity to see how people work in such a high position, and so was able to attend some meetings and meet people all around the town. So it was a great opportunity.
We did. We'll have to do that again sometime soon. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So outside of high school, what do you and your friends do?
So outside of high school, of course, we have a lot of different hobbies and things I do with my friends. I mean, we're very involved into sports, do cross country and track together. Otherwise, I have some friends interested in politics and government once again. So I'm involved in student council and politics club. That's how I was able to go to Wisconsin Senate for the week, where I met some friends as well. So it is very cool that there are so many people with different interests, and I can actually find a group for every single hobby I have. I know that there are people who have similar like objectives and interests. So it is very nice that I can be involved in different fields.
And so, yeah, you spent some time down in Madison, and it's my understanding that pretty soon you're going to be going to Washington, D.C., right?
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting one, too. One of my favorite cities. There's just so much history, so much to do there.
Exactly.
So I'm looking forward to hearing your stories there. Well, so generally, since last fall, your time here has been pretty exciting. You've learned some new things, but that really all changed on February 28th. February 28th, of course, is when Russia invaded Ukraine, and that must have been pretty devastating. Why don't you tell us, like, your first thoughts when you first started seeing some of these things happening in Ukraine?
So I think that I learned about what was going on just the day when everything started, because I was not sleeping, and my friend suddenly called me and just said that something was going on. Just call your parents and say that there is a war in Ukraine. And I was just I didn't know what to do. I was shocked. But they were bombed. They heard aircrafts and missiles all around their town. I called my parents right away. They didn't even know what was happening. It was 11 p.m. for us, I think, and 7 a.m. for them in Ukraine. So they had just their normal morning routine. Everybody, like my parents, were just preparing for work, and they didn't even understand that something happened. And that's what, like, after maybe a couple hours, people actually understood that, yeah, that's it, that's war. People just heard, noises and weapons all around the town. Some people were able to leave right away because before everything started, a lot of journalists, leadership of other countries were talking about everything that can happen in Ukraine potentially, but they had different prediction dates, like February 16th, then February 20th, and nothing actually happened. But some people were prepared with their luggage. Some people didn't expect this. Some people understood. So different reactions all around.
So over the first couple of days, you probably still had contact with your friends and family over there. What sort of news were you getting back from Ukraine, from your friends and family over that first week or so?
I think that the first week was the hardest for everybody, just because we didn't know what to do and how to react when it was supposed to end. So I think I didn't go to bed till like 2 a.m. in the morning, just because I was with them scrolling the news line and trying to make sure that they were okay. And then I woke up every morning checking if everything was okay. And a lot of people were able to live right away, even with their husbands and dads, because now men can't leave Ukraine, those who are under 65, I think. So some people were prepared. Other people were just scared. I mean, they spent a lot of time in their basements. I couldn't talk to my parents a lot because they didn't have connection when they were in shelter, in their shelter. And yeah.
No, I can't imagine. I can't imagine how difficult that must have been for you, being thousands of miles away from home. But things are okay a little bit, right? Your mother was able to leave, and tell us her story there.
So my parents stayed at my hometown for almost 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks. And they didn't want to live. I wanted them to live because I'm from Chernihiv, and it is the city in the north of Ukraine, which is not very large, and we don't have a lot of military bases. but it is a strategic point for Russian military because it is the direct way to Kiev, our capital, which is one of their targets. And I wanted my parents to leave. They didn't want to go to a different city or even country. But my mom just didn't want to stay there after like 2.5 weeks because she was so frustrated. She felt helpless and decided to go to Portugal to live with her sister. Now she's safe, and I'm very glad that she's okay and I'll be able to see her. The situation is a little bit different for my dad, who still stays in his hometown in Chernihiv. He refuses to live, even go to the western part of Ukraine, because he feels like it is his duty to stay and to protect our country. But I don't have contact with him because he has no internet, no cellular service. They don't really have heat and water and electricity. So yeah, things are very hard for people who stayed. And there were almost 300,000 people in my city before. Now there's only 130,000 left. And some still receive humanitarian aid and volunteers help them. But in other areas where my dad lives, he's very far from the city center. So it's like a suburb of Chernihiv. And he doesn't really receive anything, so they just cook food on the backyard and use the rain to collect water, melt snow. Yeah, things are very, very hard.
That has to be very tough. When was the last time you actually spoke with your father?
I think that last time I actually spoke to him when everything started on February 24th, because I called them, my parents, they were both on the call, and then I could just text to my mom. We didn't even have normal calls. I finally had a video chat with her when she left the country. So it was a very long time ago.
How about any of your peers, your friends from school? Have you remained in contact with them? Do you get news from your friends?
Yeah, so I would say that almost everybody left, and they are all across Europe, in France, in Poland, in Germany, Slovakia, Portugal, so everywhere. I think that people who had kids were trying to leave just right away. So I'm very glad that they are safe. They have families in different countries, and it is very nice that there are people who want to help. But I also have one friend who still stays in Chernihiv, and she's only 17. However, she volunteers for the army, and I have so much respect for her because she has so much courage to be able to protect other people, even though she's only a teenager.
You know, it's funny you mentioned courage, because everybody I talk to who have met you see that same courage in you. And I want to talk about that a little bit more too, because you told me that you felt the need to do something because you weren't able to be with your family in Ukraine. You wanted to do something here to help them. So tell me how you got started in that.
So I think that from the very, very beginning when I came to the United States, I felt like an ambassador of my country because the program that helped me, that sponsored me, So the program that sponsored me for my stay in the United States focused on values like leadership and peace between countries. And people who were selected, who won the scholarship, were viewed as ambassadors and as people who could share their culture and traditions. So I was very proud of being Ukrainian from the very beginning. And when things started, I think that it was a great push for me that I had to do even more because my like people in Ukraine, ordinary people, my parents and my friends were thinking about being saved, and they were afraid of being killed, and it was so frustrating for me, and my heart was actually broken. So I felt like I had to do something, and I know that it was so hard for them to sit there in shelters and understand that the whole world doesn't have to go through this. So they wanted more people to know about what they were going through, and they wanted more help from other people and from other countries. So that is how I started to talk with people about things in Ukraine and ask them for help, because I know that not everybody has money and finance to help others, but we can at least share information and talk about this and show our support just by saying something and posting things on the internet, because it's how it works. We see that the whole world is so united, and there are protests all around the world and Ukrainian flags in different countries. And it is something that supports people in Ukraine, and what is the most important, our military, because they know what they fight for, and they understand that they are not alone, and one day it will end and the whole world will be proud of them.
And I know we're gonna see an end to this eventually, as we do with all things. But I think as a society, we've grown well beyond the waging of war to settle some of our differences. I think we should be above that, and unfortunately, we're not quite there yet. But you have been reaching out and talking to anybody that will listen. And I know people appreciate that, but you offered several ways that people can help, depending on what their interest is. Can you go through a couple of those ways? And we'll get the website links up on the screen here, but they're rather long, so we'll make sure that we post them to social media, and we'll get those links out there so people watching can just go to a certain website and click on them. But tell us about some of those ways if someone was interested in humanitarian aid or helping children, or maybe even helping support the military defense over there.
Yeah, so there are so many ways to support Ukraine, and I think that the most popular one is just to donate to charity organizations and to non-governmental organizations that support our military, and children, like UNICEF provides help for injured children, or just those who were displaced and need help in other countries. And our national bank has a special fund for donating money to civilians who need help. Otherwise, people can also send physical items and physical things like blankets and clothes, toys, because so many people left without anything, and they need just essential stuff, basic things to be able to have normal life.
Physical items are a lot harder to send and get to the right people because there isn't infrastructure in place yet. So the physical items, while they're still in need, we're probably better off donating to the national bank so they can buy the items that they need and get those to the people. So we'll make sure we put some links up for that as well. The locally there's some other fundraisers going. I know Mr. Hoppy had a GoFundMe page, and Belts Soft Serve is selling not only ice cream but T-shirts to show that Stevens Point stands with Ukraine. Have you had experience with either of those yet?
Oh, sure. When everything started, um, so many people helped me, and I think that the first person that I want to mention is Mr. Hobby, as you said. He's my AP US History and AP Comparative Government teacher. He was so involved in this situation and tried just his best to help Ukrainians and those in need. I know that he organized a fundraiser and helped with crowdfunding during other conferences. He helped me to actually contact other organizations around around Stevens Point. Last week, I was present on the initiative organized by Belts Soft Serve, who sold T-shirts with the Ukrainian flag, and Stevens Point supports Ukraine, stands with Ukraine, and some of those money will be donated to Ukraine. During this breakfast, other people sold Ukrainian traditional dishes and Ukrainian traditional food, so that's how we collected more money to donate.
That's really nice. I know you were at the Winter Farmers Market last week. Do you plan on being there again the next couple of weeks? Do you know?
I live next week, so probably not. But once I have an opportunity to join, I will love to do this.
Okay.
And
And they can always stop by Belts if they're interested in a T-shirt. They even have sizes for me, so they've got the whole thing there, and you might as well grab some ice cream as long as you're there too.
and they also sell T-shirts online.
They sell them online as well. That's good. Good to know. How's the news situation? Because I know you mentioned that to me, especially in Russia, they're censoring what information is disseminated to the population. Do you know from speaking with your friends and family that are still in Ukraine how the news is getting to them and whether or not it's the full story or it's just a kind of slanted?
So here's the difference between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine is a free country, free democratic country that has government-funded and independent media as well. And a lot of people can criticize and post whatever they want. So my friends and parents who are in Ukraine or abroad can have access to sources where they can find actual information about everything that is going on, with photos and videos and other people's thoughts. Situation is a little bit different for people who live in Russia. We have some relatives there, and they follow the news on Russian media, which is completely different from what we hear because their propaganda is so strong. So a lot of people in Russia don't believe in the fact that it is not just a special military operation, but the large-scale war. And some people still think that it was a war to help Ukraine and help Russian speakers in Ukraine, but we all know that it was not true and nobody wanted this war. We only want peace, and even Russian-speaking Ukrainians were against this, and nobody wanted it. So
I think the big difference there too is that Russia has a national media. They don't have the opportunity for independent media outlets, so their message is whatever they want to tell you.
exactly. We heard this situation a couple weeks ago when the last independent source was blocked suddenly. So, and now we hear that a lot of social media platforms are blocked in Russia, like Instagram and YouTube, which highlights one more time that the Russian government doesn't really want people to hear the truth.
It certainly seems that way. Well, I can't thank you enough for being with us here today. And I couldn't be more proud. I'm a parent too. And I can tell you that as a parent, if my daughter had the strength and the courage and the determination that you did in a war situation, I couldn't be more proud as a parent. So I am quite sure that your parents and your friends who are still in Ukraine or scattered around Europe, as you said, are very proud of what you've been doing here to help the cause back home. We'll make sure and get those websites up. Any parting thoughts, as a young lady who is thousands of miles away from home here in the United States, that you want our listeners and viewers to know?
So first of all, I want to say thank you for everything you do and for inviting me here. But I also want to express how grateful I am for the whole community that helps us in times like this, because I faced so much help and support that I couldn't even stop smiling. I know that there are people who are willing to stand with Ukraine and act against Russian aggression, and it is something that I really appreciate, and I know that one day everything will stop and we'll have a bright future. And also something that, just my insight that I had when this thing started, is that it is very important to travel and to compare. Because when we visit different locations, different cities, countries, we have an opportunity to see what improvements are needed in our own countries and how we can influence this and how we can develop our own life. So that is my insight for today, and I hope that in the future Russians will be able to travel not only by tanks.
Well, I couldn't have said it any better. Maria, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for everything you do. And until next time, I'm Mayor Mike, and we've been talking Point.